Today in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4NEWS, Karu News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Gyan, and Organ Donation Foundation India as a organ donation and Indo-Gulf Management Association. Our endeavor is to bring to you every day new topic, and today's topic is digital rupee. Digital rupee is an electronic form of money that can be used in contactless transactions. Reserve Bank of India, RBI, will soon issue a central bank backed digital currency, CBDC. The digital rupee is likely to see the light of the day in the new fiscal year. CBDC is the legal tender issued by a central bank in a digital form. The digital rupee will be the digital version of physical cash issued by the RBI and will therefore be sovereign backed. Only its form is different. And to discuss this very, very important topic, that is digital rupee, we have a very elite, knowledgeable, experienced, and those who knows the topic very well, panelists are with us. And I would like to invite my first panelist guest, and he is Professor Mohanlal Agrawal. Professor Mohanlal Agrawal is the former Professor of Marketing, Innovation and Management, IIM Lucknow, XLRI Jamshedpur, and California State University, USA. He is President of Indo-Gulf Management Association. He is US Fulbright Fellow Boston, EFMD Fellow Paris, and British Council Fellow London. In 2019, he was ranked among the 251 most fabulous global education leaders. Welcome, Professor Mohanlal Agrawal, on our show. Professor Mohanlal Agrawal, as you know, the Indian Finance Minister in the budget announced on 1st February 2022, announced that India is going to have the digital rupee. So we would like to know your views on digital rupee. Professor Mohanlal Agrawal, please.
Thank you, Goel Saab. Thank you very much for giving us this wonderful opportunity to talk about perhaps, some of those most surprising, astonishing, and exciting developments taking place in India in terms of banking, in terms of digitization, in terms of financial marketing, in terms of anything that has got to do with modern form of banking, finance, and transaction. India is playing a very, very big role, probably leading role. Fintech and all those things are becoming a very, I would say, name associated with India. Everywhere it is the same thing that is being felt. If you look into this this particular thing, then in India or e-rupee or digital rupee is a part of the same chain of financial innovations that are taking place, obviously around the world also, not just in India, but India is making the biggest probably contribution into that in terms of large economy making solid contribution. Digital rupee, as you very correctly said, is a part of the currency system, but in a different form. It is fiat currency, or as you correctly said, legal tender or government backed. In many ways, it is a part of the family of what we perhaps call modern currencies or modern legal tender. Some of them are still struggling for the, I would say, both existence, valuation, as well as legal form, which are like cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies, the difference, if somebody asks what is the difference between cryptocurrency and digital currency, then perhaps the difference is of night and day. In the case of cryptocurrency, it is nothing but a commodity, or at least many countries are seeing it as a commodity or some kind of platform in which people are, trading, but as a commodity. Like you could say at some point, if I have to use a very abstract term, it is like another form of breaking the barter, but in an electric form, because it doesn't have any inherent value in it, inherent value in cryptocurrency. While in the case of digital currency, there is a value, there is a promise to pay, and there is a legal as well as government backing behind it. Like in any currency, the currency is in the hands of the receiver, an asset, and in the hands of the issuer, a liability. The same way digital rupee and e-rupee will also be a liability in the hands of the government because it is central bank issued digital currency, and it is an asset in the hands of the people who own it. This is not the case for cryptocurrency. In the cryptocurrency, there's nothing like the way I'm mentioning that it is an asset and it is a liability, but it is like a commodity. And probably that is the view why Government of India did not recognize it as a legal tender, but used it as a method of going or exploring the various forms of it by putting this 30% tax on the gains in cryptocurrencies. Now, coming back to this digital currency, it's already a reality in some countries. One of them is Nigeria. E-Naira has been issued by them. Some of the Caribbean countries also have done that. But and the number is increasing. I mean, if you look at the survey of how many countries are exploring this digital form of currency, then the number is almost 95% of the world GDP. So number of countries are increasing, and even bigger countries are also exploring, and it is doubling almost every year, or maybe in the last 3 years it has become 3 times or 4 times of the number of countries who were talking about it now. Why they are doing this? Number one, it adds to the benefits in the hands of the customers. It is a step forward than this digital payments, wallet payments, or UPI, because in those particular things there is a need of I would say, exchange house or a clearing house. But in the case of the digital currency or digital rupee, no exchange is required. It is almost like paying cash to someone, but in a different form. So instantaneous payment will be there in the case of digital rupee, which is not the case when we are making wallet payments or UPI system payments and all. Number two is that it is also going to reduce the cost of printing, cost of bringing out the currency, because it is costing in terms of both efforts, printing, transportation, logistics. So all those things will be obviously reduced to a very, very large extent by this particular thing. The third probably benefit for any country of digital currency is that it is programmable, especially a country like India, where government is providing funds for very, very specific mission oriented projects, like some government subsidized funds, government funds to the infrastructure, government subsidized situation for education, poor people, farmers. Now this particular currency has the ability of being programmable, therefore siphoning off of that particular funding will be difficult from that point of view. I'm not saying impossible, but it is difficult from that point of view. So therefore, it is also a good idea that this middleman stolen funds will be much, much less probably from that point of view. It is also bringing out transparency. So I again believe that this will further erode the size as well as the influence of informal economy or black money, as we wanted to say about that. Having said that there are benefits, there are also many problems with it and many challenges in it. And we also do not know many more challenges because we still haven't seen e-rupee in our hands, since you correctly said it is 1 year away from Reserve Bank. When I was working with the Reserve Bank of India, almost I would say 36 years ago, in the corporate office when I had the great honor of Dr. Manmohan Singh being the boss of Reserve Bank of India, and my immediate boss was Dr. C. Rangarajan. So I was working in the central banking division of Reserve Bank of India at that time, before I came to Accelerate in 1984. Now, during that particular time, we used to talk currency in a very, very different way. Almost, like it is a sacrosanct thing, almost like something which is you are uh, every day um, praising, praying, protecting, almost all wonderful feelings that you have with something that was there. I do not know what will be the form of this e-rupee, and therefore I wouldn't say at this particular moment that these are the only benefits, these are the only things. But there's some suggestion which I can make, and that particular suggestion would be that this programmability of the digital rupee should not be taken too literally and should be as much probably anonymous as the rupee or physical rupee is. In other words, physical rupee does not have the name of the last giver or the now receiver. If this particular thing happens in the case of e-rupee, which is likely, then probably I would say some kind of reluctance would be there, because it could also be used for surveillance. And that surveillance can become a negative factor of this particular wonderful, or I would say wonders of financial innovations from India. There are many other things also, like for instance, any digital transactions, the computers, the softwares, the infrastructure, they all are sources of challenges, if not sources of difficulty. Hackers are also there. In what way this hacking thing will affect the entire thing will also be a big problem or challenge, or at least a caution to be taken of that. How do we handle it? So my view is that this e-rupee or digital rupee is a next milestone of the same digital economy that India is moving forward to. It is also my view that it will affect positively the cost of money, the cost of transactions, and will be a positive spur for the business and international transactions also. So therefore, very, very wonderful things can happen. I'm not saying will happen, but I'm saying can happen. Obviously, can and will, there is a huge gap that will also depend upon our own provisions, our own laws, and our own ability to manage it. But it has that ability. For instance, I mentioned Nigeria's e-Naira. We have number of clients over there whose training programs we do here in Dubai from Nigeria. The payment has become much easier. First, it had to be naira to be converted into a dollar, then dollar to again here, you know, dirham. So it was much, much more expensive. Maybe some of us may not know, or at least some viewers would know, um, that the cost of transferring money could be as high as 7%. Now, this 7% will not remain 7%. In other words, we will become in a low cost national as well as international monetary transfer because of this digital rupee. That is where I would like to stop and would like to listen to all our friends with the benefits as well as with the challenges and tasks ahead. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Professor Mohanlal Agarwal, for giving your views. And Professor Mohanlal Agarwal has given both sides the advantages and the challenges about the digital rupee. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Dr. Nilesh Borde. Dr. Nilesh Borde is the professor in finance and strategy at Goa Business School, Goa University, Goa. He is currently program director for the MBA course. He is having teaching experience of more than 25 years in subjects such as capital markets, derivatives, international finance and strategy. He has a PhD in finance on the topic shareholder value creation. He has more than 20 research papers in national and international indexed journals. He is the regular television panelist in the topic of economics, finance, and psephology. Research thrust areas include strategy, finance with focus on MSMEs and management education. Welcome, Dr. Nilesh Borde on our show. Dr. Borde, you have heard Professor Mohanlal Agrawal. Now we would like to know your views on digital rupee. Dr. Nilesh Borde, please.
Good morning, Mr. Goel. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It is indeed a privilege and pleasure to be amongst this August panel. I think someone like Mr. Mohanlal Agrawal has already handled most of the issues with respect to digital currency and its theoretical backing. My job would probably be to try and figure out a little more in terms of its concept and more in terms of what are the issues and benefits that a country or an emerging economy like India probably can derive from a concept like a digital rupee. My personal opinion or my personal take on digital rupee has been on two counts. Number one, I think there is a huge amount of pressure that started getting levied on the government of India with respect to recognizing a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. Probably because there were a few influential blocks in society who probably had invested into that. There are challenges with stuff like cryptocurrency, and therefore it is difficult for any government to accept it as a legal tender and legalize the whole concept. Probably one of the things was to answer back or to reply to this whole concept of cryptocurrency with an Indian version or an Indian answer in view of what most of the countries are taking. Like, for example, what Mr. Mohanlal Agrawal has already said, like Nigeria or Bahamas that we have. It is quite astonishing to notice that there are almost about 70% of the central banks world over who are trying to look at the digital currency and introduction of digital currency, which are central bank backed. And therefore, a concept like CBDC, which is existing at this point in time and therefore announced in a budget, is a stepping stone ahead in that sense, as an answer or as a reply to this whole concept of cryptocurrency. Second, in my opinion, probably is the experience of digital transactions, and typically something like UPI has given as a motivation or as an encouragement or as a flip sign to this whole concept of digital currency, because the gains that have been noticed from digital transfers are quite substantial, and more importantly, they are quite beneficial. So to me, like Mohanlal Agrawal just said, digital currency or a digital rupee is more of a technologically backed currency which has been countersigned or guaranteed by a sovereign government. This is the most important thing to happen, and that's the most important differentiating point of a digital currency vis-a-vis a cryptocurrency kind of a concept. Like I said, almost about 70% of the central banks are already in process of looking at issuing this digital currency. Now, what are the advantages that I look at for an emerging economy like India? Number one, I think it will just help one of the most important things, and that is the financial inclusion. Digital currency is something that would help bringing a large strata of people, a large mass of people who are right now not included in the financial sector to be included into this whole gamut. And that's what makes it more interesting. So, for example, concepts like microfinance, which basically brought in a huge revolution in the field of enhancing the standard of living of people, and more importantly, in terms of improving on the quality of life of some downtrodden people, is absolutely beautiful. And therefore, something like a digital rupee or a digital currency would help in enhancing this whole concept and this whole process of financial inclusion. And one of them would be a very big boost to a microfinance kind of stuff. More importantly, I believe that this is not an era of financial management. I think this is an era of financial engineering. And therefore, to to a large extent, in an emerging economy like India, for instance, where agriculture is a major problem, and a risk management to these agricultural issues that we have, which is now getting more institutionalized, a concept like digital rupee or a digital currency will give a massive boost. And so financial inclusion, bringing these people who are unbanked into the whole system of banking era, is something that will be a major advantage or a major fillip of this concept of digital currency or a digital rupee. It will help in digital trade. The data already posted by the Reserve Bank of India shows that the UPI payments are very encouraging, and that's something that will enhance this whole concept. Now, the problem that lies between the digital payments that exist at this point in time and digital currency is this technology. And I think someone like Shiv Shankaran sir would be in a much better position to explain that to us than I can only speak of. And that is this whole concept of blockchain. What is the most beautiful part about this blockchain, apart from the fact that what Agrawal ji just talked about, and that's the concept of privacy, which we will talk about in just a little while. But I think this whole concept of blockchain will actually help the government streamline most of these anti-national fundings that are right now very easy to come in. Second most important part, according to the Reserve Bank of India data, almost about 45% of the currency that enters into a country like ours is counterfeit. Now, a digital currency like digital rupee will basically help in enhancing our fight against this counterfeit currency. Now, that is a most important part that will actually take place. And so therefore, a lot of this trade, a lot of this cross-border transfer of money that we talk about will not only become more efficient, but will become more responsible, because now putting a cap or keeping a control over these kind of transactions is now going to become easy. It will increase the payment efficiency, which is the most important thing to happen. And as we see a lot in a currency market as of today, there is this dearth of price discovery. So the problem is right now, we are not very sure whether the kind of traded rates that we are talking about, the exchange rates, are actually close to its intrinsic value. So, and that happens because a lot of currency markets in emerging economies like India are not very efficient. They're not very liquid, so to say. And therefore, when you have a concept of a digital currency kind of a thing, it will not only enhance the payment, it will not only make them more efficient, but what it will also do is it will enhance the liquidity into the financial market, and more importantly, it will help in better price discovery, which simply will mean that rigging or playing with the exchange rate will not happen any further, which simply will be a big benefit to a country like, or emerging economies like India. And these are some of the most important issues. Now, I believe that there are very few people, and the depth of financial markets in a country like India is absolutely abysmal. And because of this, if you have something like a digital currency which can easily be traded now, and which can easily be looked at, and the market forces can actually impinge upon them, there is this huge possibility that the financial markets will start getting more liquid, they will start getting more efficient, and that will result in much better discovery of efficient exchange rates. And these efficient exchange rates will tremendously benefit a country like India, which is right now making its mark felt on export markets. It will also help a country like India in order to streamline, prune, and more importantly, responsibly manage its import bill. Now, though these are some of the benefits that one would derive from a thing like digital currency, in a country like India, you will also find a lot of challenges. And what could these challenges be? To a very simple and a common man like me, who is trying to be a student of finance and has been trying to do that for the last 23 years, some of the most important concepts that I really look at in terms of making digital currency extremely efficient and and challenge free are things like, a very simple concept like availability of internet, for instance. Though the budget basically talks about 5G networks and things like that, it is still a challenge to have a proper network at this point in time. And according to one of the data that we have, the coverage of proper internet coverage in a country like India just comes to almost only about 63 or 64%, which simply means that this is going to be one of the major challenges which people are going to face with respect to working of this digital currency. More importantly, I think in a country like India, which has got a massive gap in terms of digital literacy, I think this digital divide is going to be a major concern. Again, I'm putting this across as more of common men, where people are the end users of this thing are going to face a few issues like these. So this digital divide is going to be a major concern. Another problem that's going to be there is this concept of an abysmally low reverse socialization that exists in some of the other countries. Now, what is this reverse socialization? It's a place where you would have the younger generation tending to kind of make the elder generation who are not so digitally literate to kind of bring them to the fore of using the digital literacy. Let's look at it on a very simple concept. My parents still do not have internet banking, for instance. And if they do not have a concept like internet banking right now, and they do not do any online transactions, it is going to be quite tough for me to market them a concept like a digital currency. And therefore, that's going to be one major social challenge that people are going to face. Another major problem that I look at is a very basic economic concept, and that is information asymmetry. Now, that's going to be another major challenge that people are going to face with respect to this digital rupee or a digital currency. And what is this financial asymmetry? It's basically the asymmetry in the available information that exists with respect to a certain project or with respect to a certain issue. And with respect to a concept like digital currency, I think it's going to be a major problem. I would come to another important issue, which I think I stand corrected by someone like Shiv Shankaran sir. In one of the reports that have been presented, and which was a part of the BBC news item, it says that a concept like blockchain consumes a huge amount of energy, and therefore one of the major things that it talked about was, in a year, almost to the tune of $45 million worth of energy bills have been incurred by people who have been involved into cryptocurrency kind of a stuff. Now, if I assume that the same technology is going to be used for a concept like a digital currency, only making it more sovereign oriented because of the backing of a government, the energy consumptions are going to be equally high. And now that's another issue that I think a country like India or an emerging economy like India would face, which in any which way is facing a huge demand-supply gap in energy consumption. Another important thing Agrawalji put up very effectively, and that is the privacy issue. My privacy as an individual or as a citizen is going to go with a concept like digital currency if it's understood very well in its existing format. And that is, in what the point in a cryptocurrency is that you have a digital currency that exists, but at the same time, there is a huge amount of privacy that is maintained in this entire chain. And therefore, the anonymity that exists in terms of a transaction is kept absolutely sacrosanct. And that is one of the major premises on which the cryptocurrency works. With government at the helm and government backing it and the government controlling this blockchain technology. And again, as I said, I stand corrected by someone like Shiv Shankaran sir, because mine is more of a hearsay kind of a knowledge and a little bit of reading that works on us. I have a feeling that the kind of interference or the kind of data excess that government would have with respect to individual transactions would be tremendous. So on one side, government knowing transactions that are in national interest is an absolutely predominantly yes. I have a feeling that the privacy of a common man would tend to be at stake to a large extent. I think That's one thing which will probably need to be addressed, or at least people like me would need to be pacified with respect to a construct like this. And therefore, I think, in my opinion, I see that as a major challenge. And as Agrawalji just said rightly, there is still 1 year ahead, and we are like a blind man in a dark room trying to look out for a black cat. Okay, so that we are right now in that position. So as we get more clarity on this, I guess these are some of the issues that need to get addressed. And my final point, Goel Saab, is the security issue. Again, Shiv Shankaranji is a far superior person to speak on it than I can even think of, and that is the security part of it. The kind of cyber crimes that I actually look at this point in time are so many. The hacking, the way people kind of get into my systems and dupe me for my money, I think it's so large that when it comes to a concept like this, we start getting centralized. Now, a hacker, if he is able to get into that particular groove or that particular central point and that particular heart of the system, I'm completely terrified even in imagining what can happen. It would be a typical Hollywood thriller that Indian citizen would probably live with. To end with, I would just like to say I'm a very, very highly optimistic man. There are lots of people who believe that when they look at a half glass filled, whether you want to look at a half empty glass or a half filled glass, I'm an eternal optimist, and I believe there is no such thing as half empty, because where there is no water, there is at least air. And so therefore, I really do not want to start off on a negative note, though I accept the fact that there are challenges in the way of implementing this digital currency concept. My take is it is something that is bound to revolutionize the way India does its business, the way India lives its life, and more importantly, something that would ignite India being a $5 trillion economy very soon. Thank you so much, Mr. Goel, once again for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nilesh Borde, for giving your views. And Dr. Borde has given both sides again for the digital rupee. He has given the brighter side, what are the advantages, but he has also mentioned about the challenges. But he said it's quite premature to discuss because already it's going to take 1 year and we don't know what will be the form and how it is going to be taken care by the government and whether the cyber crime will be taken care or not. So many challenges are there, but he is very positive about this, and he says let's hope that it will work nicely. Thank you very much, Dr. Nilesh Borde, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and she is Ms. Shalini Sitaraman Manages. Ms. Shalini is the founder director of SimSim Advisory Limited, Goa. Ms. Shalini has an advanced background in physics, law, and more recently in finance. She is the founder and director of SimSim Advisory Private Limited, a legal and business advisory, and also India's first patent aggregator platform, patented.network. She is here today to share what she knows about e-rupee. Welcome, Ms. Shalini Sitaraman Manages on our show. As you have heard, Professor Mohanlal Agrawal as well as Dr. Nilesh Borde. Now we would like to know your views on digital rupee. Ms. Shalini Sitaraman Manages, please. Please unmute.
Thank you, Goel sir. The problem with following up on stalwarts such as Mohanlal sir and Nilesh sir is that I will only be providing a recap of I think it'll end up being a recap session rather than anything interesting, but I'm going to do my best. My experience with crypto started a couple of years ago, actually during the pandemic when I had some time on hands, and I downloaded the WazirX app and invested a tiny bit of amount in cryptocurrency just to see, just so I can keep track of how the market is changing and what is happening. And then I realized that entire universe of that cryptocurrency is controlled by one puppet master, and that is Mr. Elon Musk. He puts out a tweet and immediately things are all over the place, right? Including that I shifted from Bitcoin to Cardano and Dogecoin. So now I'm down 60% of my investment in cryptocurrency. So that should tell you my experience. Having said that, I have also been dabbling in creating a network, a decentralized autonomous network where we can trade patents in exchange for cryptocurrency. So that is again something I'm working on, and therefore this introduction of the e-rupee by the government has come at a fantastic time, because I can do that as a part of the transaction system in my invention. What the pandemic has taught us, it's one major thing, that the architecture of money is changing. It's changing drastically, right? It has led to collapse in the use of cash all around the world. And this desire, this phobia we have, that if we touch this note, germs are going to get transferred and so on. So this has expanded the mindset of people to include cashless payments, to include our UTI payments. And therefore we are already primed for such an inclusion of CBDC. And then because of the pandemic and because of cashless transactions, central banks everywhere, I have noticed, as Mohanlal sir was saying, that a lot of countries have already included this. Quite a few countries are in the pilot phase. I think there are 87 more countries that are going to include it in the next few months. And so it seems that everyone, the central banks everywhere have been kind of jolted into action. And therefore, it is but inevitable that the next step, that this crunch on cash, the squeeze on cash is going to trigger multiple CBDC initiatives all across the world. So we have to, so this is the right time for all of us to be talking about it. And there are a bit of technology knowledge is required, which I'm here to learn today. And many CBDC systems are also going to talk about, are they going to share the technology characteristics of Bitcoin and Ethereum? The questions, I have more questions than answers at this stage. My questions are we going to be using Ethereum? What platform are we going to be using? Are we smart contract ready? Right? How many of us have knowledge of how smart contracts work and how it's going to be implemented across the system? I recently did a short course in smart contracts and to include in my patented system, and therefore I am curious about how it will work on such a large scale with a country like India. Second is, how are we going to deal with exchange of the CBDC and the regular fiat currency? Is that it is of course going to be interchangeable, but what is our point of contact for exchanging that? We have, if you look at euros, how euro works, the cash transaction amounts to only 10% of their GDP. Okay, in Sweden it is 1%. That means the rest of it is cashless transaction. Rest of it, so they are already into that cashless mode. Whereas for us, it has only been in the last 2 years with all our Beam Pay and Google Pay and so on. So how is there going to be mining involved? Like Bitcoin relies heavily on mining. Is there going to be mining involved, or how is it going to work? That's the other question I have. Secondly, as Nilesh sir also pointed out, the energy reliance, right? We are going to be consuming huge, Bitcoin was highlighted by Mr. Elon Musk precisely for that reason, that it is consuming huge amounts of energy, and therefore a lot of people ditched Bitcoin and moved on to Cardano and Dogecoin. So how are we going to deal with the energy requirements, especially when we are still dealing with electricity fluctuations on a daily basis, even in metro cities? We have privacy issues were the other concerns, right? Privacy issues, I think we have given up anyway on privacy issues with showing our Aadhaar everywhere and being on Arogya Setu app, and everyone knows who around you has COVID and who around you is vaccinated or not. So I don't think privacy should be that much of a concern, but if if you're talking of privacy on one hand, and of course we have our right to privacy, it's a fundamental right, but the benefits far outweigh that threat to privacy, because we'll be able to track any kind of illegal transaction, any kind of illegal trading that happens. So I think shifting to a CBDC would be a welcome change in that step, in that direction. We have cybercrime hacking. Cybercrime hacking is, again, there are provisions in place, legislation for cybercrime hacking. And I think the problem is that we are not making enough use of those legislations. There is the IT Act, which lays down how to track cybercrime and how to deal with it, and including our criminal procedure code, and IPC talks about it. But I think we are not yet there. We are not savvy enough to be talking about cybercrime and handling it. Even the cybercrime division, I mean, they have some well-read people who have advanced degrees in law and so on, but even then I think the general public, my husband's post office account got hacked into, and a small amount of money was stolen. We haven't gotten a closure on that, so we have to still talk about how those kind of scenarios are handled. With regular currency, fiat currency, which we save in various mechanisms, FD, RD, and so on. Even those are getting hacked and stolen, and we haven't been able to get a resolution to that. So how are we going to, would CBDC then make that simpler, because we are able to track transactions? We have IP address and so on and so forth, and we'll be able to track it easily. So maybe that is a benefit to having CBDC. But I think the main concern in all this is that most of our country is still living below poverty line. We still don't have access to basic necessities such as water, clothing, education, food. And then in the middle of all that, if we, again, move everything to, of course, it will not move overnight, but there has to be we have to level the playing field. Everyone has to be, if not everyone, a majority has to be brought on to the level playing field. And then, we can talk of progress, but otherwise a lot of effort has to be currently put into bringing everyone, to equal status, or equitable status, I should say, not equal status. So how would we deal with that, because we are still talking about, yes, of course, we thought the same when, we went to UTI payments. We thought, okay, how is our Bhajiwala going to handle it? But he handled it beautifully, right? Our daily service and goods providers, the people who provide us with bare necessities, the milkman, the vegetable vendor, the newspaper vendor, everyone now, I think almost everyone has a smartphone which can accept UTI payments. So I think that is something hopeful, and that is something that, we can, because of that, as a test case, we can be hopeful about this, that CBDC will be accepted and integrated with equal ease, if not more. I still have a confusion with, of course, CBDC is going to be backed by the central bank, but then I think we should, rather than just saying no to the crypto world, which is decentralized, and rather than saying that, no, that is bad and we will not look at it, I think we should study it in depth and take lessons from it, because there are a lot of things, they are not all bad and they're not all good either. But I think because they have been around longer, I think we should study those platforms. We should study how they work, how transaction works, how interchange of currency, whether how easy or how difficult it is to go from say Bitcoin to Ethereum, or I have to go from Doge to Bitcoin to Cardano or something like that. So how simple or how difficult is that transaction? What are the transaction fees that are involved, if any? And if there are going to be, and of course, if there is a blockchain technology, there is bound to be transaction fees. And if it is something that is going to pinch my wallet, then maybe I don't want it. Okay, so there are a lot of question marks in my head, and hopefully in the question answer session, one of you stalwarts may put my unease at rest. What are we going to do? So we should take lessons from all these other platforms that are already in place, and learn from them and try and incorporate them now, because we are at a beautiful spot where the government has sanctioned it. We have CBDC talks happening, but there is no legislation in place. There is no set rules in place. So this is a beautiful time to learn lessons from e-Naira and from China and from Saudi, and also from these private crypto traders and crypto platforms, and incorporate them. And I think then we will have a beautiful set of, we've learned from everyone's failures. There are already, with the Bahamas have already done it, and Peru had it but cancelled it. There are a couple of other countries that had it but cancelled it. So we need to know what they did wrong, why it got cancelled, and the ones where it is working, why it is working, how it is working. And maybe then, like how our constitution is this beautiful amalgamation of, we've learned from Ireland and Japan and UK and US, and we've come up with this beautiful document. And I think if we learn from others' mistakes, we will stand on the shoulders of giants, and our experience with incorporating CBDC will be easier than it has been for other countries.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shalini, for giving your views. And Ms. Shalini has given the advantages and the challenges, because right now the condition is that we don't know. It's like a black box. What is going to be the form? And still it's quite in a initial stage. And once it will be launched, then only we will be able to know. But still, she feels that there are advantages, but there are disadvantages. And she has mentioned about her own experiences, how she lost in cryptocurrency, and how she has her husband's account has been hacked in the post office. So this shows that still we have to see to it that all those challenges, which even right now we are facing about hacking, should be taken care. Thank you very much, Ms. Shalini, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Dr. N. Shiv Shankaran. Dr. Shiv Shankaran is the Associate Professor of Finance, XLRI, Jamshedpur. Dr. N. Shiv Shankaran teaches accounting and finance courses at XLRI. His research interests include working capital management, corporate governance, accounting education, and finance education. He has authored and published several research papers in international peer-reviewed journals, besides authored a book on financial analysis for beginners. Welcome, Dr. N. Shiv Shankaran on our show. Dr. Shiv Shankaran, you have heard Professor Mohan Lal Agrawal, Dr. Nilesh Borde, as well as Ms. Shalini, and they have given their views. They are very positive, but they are having lots of apprehension about what is going to happen once it will be launched. You being the expert in this field, as Dr. Borde has mentioned several times about you, so we would like to know now your views on digital rupee. Dr. N. Shiv Shankaran, please.
Good morning, Mr. Goel, Professor Agarwal, Professor Nilesh, Madam Shalini, and the viewers. For everyone, it's my wish for a great day. So I am the last person speaking in the panel. So the best way of putting it is, whatever I wanted to say, my co-panelists have already put it, maybe from a different perspective, but almost they have said. So perhaps I will try to pick up or I will try to elaborate a little bit. I am not an expert as that of the other three, so I will rate myself lower. But I have done little bit research on this topic the moment I got a call from Professor Agarwal. So thanks for this, Professor Agarwal and Mr. Goel and all other co-panelists. I will try to perhaps take some data for my help in order to maybe give a little more strength to our understanding of what is this going to do for our country. Professor Agarwal had already discussed about the difference between physical currency and digital currency. And he also discussed about the early entrants like Bahamas, Nigeria, and other Caribbean countries. And I think Professor Nilesh had given statistics about the number of countries who are venturing into launching a digital currency, wherein he said almost every country is into it. And Madam had brought about cryptocurrency experience. And then her questions, she had a lot of questions. So obviously, if we connect all these three, the point which I would like to start with is this. Many times, if you look at human beings, we don't do things unless and otherwise we are forced to do. So if we say that the entire world is moving towards digital currency, we as a country do not have a choice, rather it's a compulsion for us to get into this digital map. So if that is the case, we need to weigh the benefits as well as the limitations, and we have to arrive at what are the net advantages or net disadvantages that will give us an idea about whether we should go for a digital currency or not. So I will start with the major advantage, which is capturing block money. If you look at block money or shadow money, which is being a concern for the country for a number of decades, government after government tried to control it but could not do it. Here comes an opportunity for Indian government to really move ahead. Why? Because the quantum of block money is so much. And there are different sources which talk about different figures with regard to how much is the quantum of block money. For example, I have learned a source stating that it is 3 times of GDP, which is coming to be around 780 lakh crores. Another source is documenting it is about 900 lakh crores in terms of rupees. And a conservative estimate has come from World Bank, which says it is 20% of India's GDP. So if you go by the projection for GDP for the next year, financial year 22-23, which is around 260 lakh crores. So if you're going to compute 20% of that, it comes to a whooping 52 lakh crores. This is unreported income. So if you're going to go by the tax rate, average tax rate of 30% on this 52 lakh crores, it comes to be around 15.6 lakh crores. Is it a big amount? Is it going to solve our problem? Yes, a big yes for this. How can I say this? I would like to borrow the data from union budget for the last 3 years. So if you look at our union budget, the data on borrowing as a source of total receipts, in the year 2021, it was 20% of total receipts. In the year 21-22, it rose to 36%, though the reason is quoted to be pandemic. But still, we are on a higher side. If you look at the next year, FY 22-23, it is pegged at 35% of total receipts. So that means we are on an increasing trend in terms of borrowing year after year. If you look at the income tax as a source of total receipts, you can see it is coming down. It was at 17% in the financial year 2021. It came down to 14% in 21-22, and it is estimated to be 15% of total receipts for the next year, that is FY 22-23. So that means what is wrong with this increase in borrowing? For the benefit of viewers, the more you borrow, the lesser you are going to be in terms of reputation. So that means the rating agencies are going to downgrade India. If that is going to happen, the economy is going to get into trouble. So that means borrowing is clearly not going to be the right way of managing your expenditure, but we are compelled to get into that. If I am going to look at how much it is, the fiscal deficit projected for FY 22-23 is estimated at 16.61 lakh crores. And if you are going to convert this block money into white money because of digital currency, how much we are going to collect? We are going to collect 15.6 lakhs. So that means if you are going to subtract 15.6 lakhs from 16.61 lakhs, the net deficit is going to be merely 1 lakh crores. So that means we are able to bring down, we will be then if I'm going to come with an associated stat for that, which is about interest payment. Again, if I borrow the stat from union budget, In FY 2023, interest payment as a percentage of total users was 18%. In FY 21-22, it was 20%. And for the next year, again, it is pegged at 20% of total users. And in terms of absolute rupees, the amount is expected to be rupees 9.4 lakh crores, which is again a very huge amount. So for me, in my view, the greatest advantage of this digital currency, if it is going to be implemented successfully, is going to be in terms of converting block money or bringing block money into mainstream. Thereby, we are able to reduce our fiscal deficit to a great extent. We are able to reduce our interest payment to a great extent. That means, on the one hand, we are seeing increase in revenue. On the other hand, we are seeing decrease in borrowing, decrease in interest rate. So we get more cash, we get more funds that can be allocated to key growth sectors. For example, Professor Nilesh was talking about financial inclusion. So as Professor Agarwal. So he was also talking about agriculture. Okay. So that means if you have to improve the performance of key sectors, or if you have to contribute really in order to make our country not truly financially included, you need more funds for sectors like education, healthcare, rural development, infrastructure, and so on. So that means this is a wonderful idea, which is which has perhaps missed the attention of media, wherein many times, right, a good move is not being noticed. So people feel that it is going to be a game changer for India as well as Indian economy, perhaps because of this advantage. The second advantage, according to me, is that it is going to be a kind of a settlement on real-time basis. So Professor Agarwal has already discussed about the advantage of this real-time settlement, wherein somebody working in abroad, say for example UAE, he or she can send money to his relations in Kerala, right, or Karnataka or any other part of the country on real-time basis. So that means there is no conversion issue. That's what Professor has pointed out. Further, it reduces the transaction cost for them. So this is a wonderful thing, right? And if you go to any bank in India, particularly suburban rural area, you will find people standing in long queue for ATM transactions, or for withdrawal, or for deposits, or for loans. What you can see always in a bank branch is a kind of a good number of people standing in a kind of queue for longer time. So this is going to reduce that time. So this is going to remove that time. So that means people can perhaps put that for their productive use. Professor Nilesh was talking about financial inclusion. One of the reasons for financial exclusion is people don't want to go to the bank and waste their productive time because there are a lot of bureaucratic issues, right? So that means if you are going to get into a digital transaction, it is going to reduce the time. It is going to give more productive time for people to put in terms of their economic activity. So that is another advantage which may happen because of the launch of digital currency. And the third one, from the financial perspective, for banks, what is going to happen is banks are going to see a huge reduction in their operating cost because employees are going to concentrate more on other productive activities because people are not going to come to the branch. So that time can be made use of for improving the business for the banks as well as decreasing the cost for the bank. So that is another advantage, right, which I see because of digital currency. And the last one, which I see is about the need for interbank settlements. Now what happens is Bank A, right? Suppose if I am a customer in Bank A, you are a customer in Bank B. So if you and me are going to transact, then A and B are going to get into interbank settlement, which takes time. And there is a settlement risk also, which can be completely removed by digital currency. So these are all the advantages which come to my mind when I look at what will happen to India if you are going to launch digital currency. As my friends have already given both the sides of the coin, I'm not an exception to that. I'm also interested in bringing the disadvantages. Perhaps I will say limitations, or perhaps I will say these are all myth. Okay, these are all myths. These are all not reality, but there are opinion which are there in the kind of reading space. If you're going to look at what will happen to India if you're going to launch digital currency. The very first limitation which comes to my mind is about banks. A section of the population feels that banks are going to struggle for deposits. So let's look at what is happening to banks, Indian banks particularly, right, at present. If you look at the total deposits of Indian banks, CASA, current account, saving account, deposit account for around 35 to 40% on an average for Indian banks, for which they are paying meager interest of around 2 to 3%. If we are going to launch a digital currency, one of the reasons for us to go to a bank is we are worried about the safety issue. So we don't want to keep cash with us, so we go to the bank. We keep it for some time till we need money. That's what the present scenario, most of the times, right? So if digital currency comes into force, there is no need to worry about the safety issue because it's in digital form. So if that is going to happen, people apprehend, people fear that the banks may not be able to get the deposits, okay? Because nobody will go to the bank, particularly CASA deposit, right? So that is what the myth, right? So if I'm a banker, for example, I'm SBI. So what will happen to me if my customers are not going to deposit in CASA? What is going to happen to me is either I have to motivate my customers to deposit their money in CASA. That means I have to give them more interest. So if I do that, my cost of deposits go up, or the other alternative is I have to borrow from the other parties. So either way, it is going to increase my cost of funding. So that is going to reduce my net interest margin because competition forces me to be competitive on deciding on rate of lending. So that means net interest margin may come down, thereby spread may come down. That means banks' profitability may get affected. This is a kind of worry in the minds of at least people who are from the banking perspective, right? But the point is that it's a myth. It's not true because RBI is not going to issue interest-bearing digital currency. So that means a rational customer, a rational depositor, or a rational investor will anyway go to the bank. So that means banks, banks have no need to worry about this. So this is one important myth which is solvable. The second limitation is, of course, my friends have already spoken about. All three of them have spoken about it, wherein they said if there is going to be a technical glitch, what will happen, right? My entire money will, become zero, right? So that means what can be done is the question. Before we answer that question, we need to ask a question. The question is it possible for a technical problem? Answer is yes, why not? It may happen. So if it is going to happen, what is that we can do about it? Is the question. Answer is the RBI, as Shalini Madam was talking about, we need to learn from other markets, other economies which have launched digital currency. That is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is go for more pilot study, okay, in kind of experiments, do at different parts of the country, try to see how it works. And if not possible, the best thing is to go for a real-time updation after the occurrence of every transaction. That means I, as a customer, get a kind of message or communication from the bank stating that there is a transaction and my available balance is this much. Okay. So that means if there is going to be a technical glitch after some time, it can be somehow reduced, it can be mitigated, if not fully, right? The other way is banks or RBI can try to have a kind of backup for kind of customer on a periodic basis, so that the problem of or the impact of the kind of issues like this can be mitigated. And the third one, again, my co-panelists had spoken about. They were talking about the opportunity for fraudulent, fraudulent transactions. Yes, that is possible. Even today, it's happening. Okay, so that means can we avoid that? Is the question. Answer is yes. You can try to mitigate it. You can't avoid it. It's a risk. Professor Nilesh will agree with me. No risk can be avoided. You can't avoid that, right? But you can always try to mitigate it, right? You can minimize it. So how can you do that is the question. Perhaps the RBI or the banking system can increase the security level. Even right now, for example, if you're a customer in SBI, right? For every transaction, you get a pin for every transaction. So that means you can increase the right security layers. Thereby, I think you will be able to reduce the loss on this particular right fraudulent set of activities. The last but one in terms of limitation which comes to my mind is, of course, my friends have already spoken about it, wherein they were saying that there is no anonymity. True, there is no anonymity, right? So why should we have anonymity, right? We don't need to have anonymity because, right, the very purpose of introducing digital currency perhaps is to, right, bring the block money into mainstream. So that means it's not a limitation. What is wrong in it as long as, right, my, right, legible money is getting noticed by the government, there is nothing wrong in it, right? So I don't think it's a limitation, rather people need to cooperate, people have to come forward and disclosing, because for example, if you talk about corporate governance, if you talk about ESG, environment, social governance reporting, we are talking about moving higher at the kind of reporting as well as transparency level. So that means we need to move ahead, right? So that means anonymity is not an issue, rather, right, people have to understand that this is not going to work against them. For that matter, even in today's context, the bank knows your transaction. So that means there is a kind of, right, Professor Agarwal will agree with me. So the banker will not, is not supposed to reveal the data to others. So it is going to be kept confidential so as, right, perhaps the issuer can think about it. The last one in terms of limitation, again from policy perspective, is that there are people who feel that RBI is supposed to get into other functions like taking care of money supply in the economy, taking care of supervising the performance of other banks. So if RBI is going to enter into this, people feel that the effectiveness of RBI in terms of its other functions may get affected. So thereby, the very purpose of RBI or any central bank for that matter, for being in existence, is going to be lost. This is a kind of apprehension. And perhaps it can be sorted out by setting up a separate department which can take care of this. So this is what I feel. So that means coming to an end, as I started with, so it's not a choice, rather it's a compulsion, because every other country is moving towards it. If we have to get into a virtuous cycle in economic growth, we need to generate more revenue, we need to reduce our deficit, we need to make sure that we are including everybody, and we need to make sure that we are doing it in a kind of right manner where everybody is supporting it. So if that is the case, I think we should go ahead with the launch of digital currency. Thank you so much, Mr. Goel. Thank you so much, Professor Agarwal, Professor Nilesh, and Madam Salvi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shiv Shankran, for giving your views. And Dr. Shiv Shankran has given both sides, and he has tried to give the solutions, the myths. He said that these are the myths, but these are the facts. So he has tried to, and according to him, it's a very positive sign. Thank you very much. Now my question goes to Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, you mentioned about the countries who are using Bahamas, etc. I want to know from you, how many developed government, the countries, had this digital currency backed by the government, not the cryptocurrency? How many developed countries are using this?
Even developed, like advanced economies like USA, UK, and all, right? Those kinds of things.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
No, at this moment, none of them are doing this, and that is the reason is they are big countries. So big countries have big consequences, and as a result, experiments is always done from the scale from that scale point of view. But that doesn't mean that when these countries will come, they will be laggards. They will still be leaders. They will still be bringing out many more features which these Caribbean and Nigeria and others, they could not do it. So from that point of view, it will not happen.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Agarwal. Now my question goes to Dr. Bode. You have used two things. One is the transparency and the counterfeit currency. Now, transparency, I will not say, everybody knows that if we talk about currency transparency, what about the electoral bonds? So we should not speak in India about the transparency. Now, if you talk about the counterfeit currency, demonetization showed fake currencies was a myth. I'm not saying. Says Bombay High Court on 2nd August 2019. And they says 99% money come back. Now, my question to you is, if it was question of fake High Court ruling, and you can go and the Google and search it. So why we are just showing that type of fear to the public, and we are doing it with some intent which is not clear? My question to you is, don't you think the intent of government is not that? Government intent is something other, and that's why they are coming out with this digital rupee. Dr. Borde, please.
Well, I would not like to get into a
No, it's not a political.
discourse,
I'm giving you the factual of Bombay High Court that 99% money came back. It means there was no fake currency, because you have mentioned about the fake counterfeit currency. I'm asking you, if it was not there, how it has been generated in 3 years, or now if we say that again the counterfeit currency is there? I don't think that counterfeit is there. If it had been, it would have been in at the time of demonetization also. Please.
Right, Mr. Goel, no, I said political discourse only as to what has been the intent of the government to do it. So I'm not going to get into that. That's what I said is a political discourse. As far as the demonetization is concerned, I think I remember having put a social media post on Facebook. We said that government is using nuclear missiles to catch a pickpocketer. I think that itself basically for the demonetization, but that's a different topic altogether. Coming to a counterfeit point of view, Mr. Goel, one needs to remember, obviously, what will come back to the system is not a counterfeit currency any which way. What will come back to people is going to be a currency that is legal and a valid tender. Second, what is also most important is while having put a step like this, I think High Court, Honorable High Court needs to understand that currency is just a mere source, not the application. And therefore, if there is 99% currency that came back into the system, sir, with due respect, one needs to really then understand what happens to those things which have been represented in the form of assets. Like, for example, gold and real estate. If you add that into it, it will surely cross 100%, which simply means that there has been a problem at some point in time. It's a basic math. I'm only trying to say that you have a lot of, like Shiv Shankaran sir said, there's a lot of shadow capital which comes out. And therefore, one of the major things that happens with the digital currency is that this concept of shadow cash or shadow money will come out.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir, second point, just to make a last point on this, I think digital currency will act in the same manner as a demat account, where earlier for a physical share, you would have had a problem with respect to bad delivery. Now you would not have bad deliveries with respect to digital currency.
Okay.
Can I join here?
Afterwards, I have many questions today, because I want the viewers should know, and I'm acting as a devil's advocate. So I have to ask these questions. Now my question goes to Ms. Shalini. Ms. Shalini, you have given your experience. Now my question is, if we are introducing this digital thing, why not the insurance cover to be there for the digital rupee? If anything goes wrong, if the money has been stolen or hacked, because if I am putting money, I have a cash, and as one of the panelists says that we are going to keep the money in the bank because for the safety that, okay, it will be there. But if it is hacked, then in other countries like Singapore, there are some accounts were hacked. The bank made it good immediately. Until unless the government will not come out with the insurance cover of this the digital currency, don't you think that it should be introduced in India? What you say about this, Ms. Shalini?
Goel sir, it's like asking your parents to show insurance. You know, if you're asking your central bank for to cover it, it is a good idea, but I don't know. I mean, we know that CBDC, when it is issued, it has to be backed by the central bank. But then
sorry, Shalini, this is not what he meant. What he meant was that you have the e-cash, but it is hacked by the third party, by the fraudsters. Then what is the insurance for that? Am I correct, Dr. Goel?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, that is the same thing right now. Even, I mean, you can use that same logic even for whatever money I have in my savings account right now. If it gets hacked, does the bank make good my loss?
Good point.
It doesn't. it says, you sort it out, file an FIR, I go file an FIR, FIR says you didn't take care of your card, something like that happens.
Although I will just add one thing, that as per one of the judgment of Supreme Court, which says that if the money has been taken out fraudulently from the bank is liable to make it good immediately. Although no banks accept it, because in India, Supreme Court orders are like useless. We are not in habit for following those orders. We have seen even yesterday also, Supreme Court is quite annoyed with one of the issues, which I am not going to discuss right now. So according to you, it's a good idea, but it is not been followed in India.
It is not being followed for regular currency. I don't see how it is going to be followed for CBD.
No, it's not. See, the thing is, right now we are keeping money in the bank. We have a checkbook. We are issuing checks. So at least we have some control. But in each, and especially when one of the panelists, so my question goes to Dr. Shiv Sankaran. In India, the literacy rate. Literacy doesn't mean the educated and the knowledge or intelligence is lots of difference. How many people knows how to trade or how to do e-transactions? And if this will come, definitely it is very easy for the fraudsters to hack or to do something with a small, like mentioned that UTI payments we are using. Very nice. But the person who is having the money on digital form, if anybody will try to hack it, he will not be able to, because he will give a mobile to somebody else. Okay, just please, I want this much money to be transferred. He will do it and he will transfer wherever he wants. So my question to you is, either you enlighten the public at large first, number one. Number two, make quite good safeguard the cyber security, which you have also shared. Unless not, please delay this thing. Otherwise, don't you think it will be again a very big setback like the demonetization which we have faced in that time? What is your opinion?
Sir, thank you for this question. I look at this way. Any progress which has to be made, it has to start somewhere. So, sir, we are not talking about implementation of this on the next day. It has to go on a progressive manner. That's where my co-panelists have made a suggestion of going for pilot studies or learning from other countries. So in management, many times we talk about benchmarking. So that means we learn from others. So that means what is that as Madam Shalini had put it, the questions that come to all our mind is what is that we can learn from Nigeria? What is that we can learn from Bahamas? What is that we can learn from our present UPI or Google Pay, right, transactions? So there are data which also talk about the penetration of the digital payment system, even in the so neglected areas of suburban and rural areas. I think Professor Nilesh will agree with me. People do make use of technology for agriculture and other transactions, not at a higher level. So that means, clearly taking your point, it is true that there are people who are not literate, even people who are in urban area, like our own students or even our own friends. We may not be that much familiar with that of going for online transactions. That's what I think Professor Nilesh said. His parents.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have to start somewhere.
Okay.
So we have to go on awareness as well as we have to come out with technology. One last point, sir.
Yeah.
Maybe we can think about introducing biometric instead of going for going on PIN. Why don't we think about biometric? For example, Aadhaar works clearly on biometric. So that means if that is the issue, technology can come for our help because we have learned a lot of things from Aadhaar. Maybe we can try to extend that, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Singh. My question goes to Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, we are talking of the technology in India, and we are seeing, I'm doing the program every day. Many times, even in cities like Mumbai or Delhi, face lots of internet problem. And what is the condition of the rural? Now, if a person who is having that digital money, and if the internet is down, even if he is having a smartphone, he cannot transact. Don't you think it will be a havoc for him? At least if he is having some cash, he can pay somewhere. What is your view about this, Professor Agrawal?
As always, you're asking very thought-provoking questions. And I think I agree with all my panelists. There are 3 or 4 things which we may need to understand. Number one, digital rupee is not replacing the rupee fully. It is only one of the options. And one of the options means one of the options of more satisfaction to the customer. Of course, to some extent, it always is a problem for some others. But that doesn't mean that because someone is inconvenienced or internet is down or something else, that we should stop the progress for others where there is no issue like that. Number
Okay.
two, when you say that there is some other intention, there are always multiple intentions and multiple outcomes. But we shouldn't become too cynical just because someone is making a
Okay.
change.
No, you have
We
given
say
the
that
answer.
there is a
That
problem about
that
that.
answer, that question. Now my question goes to Dr. Bode. Thank you much, Dr. Agarwal. Programmable digital currency, which Dr. Agarwal has mentioned. Don't you think it's like a Pegasus spine? If I will go to a bar without informing my wife, if I will go to a ladies bar or for a nightclub, what is going to happen? Don't you think nobody wants this type of privacy to be breached? This is what I
No,
want to
no,
know from you. No, I'm
no.
not.
One
Sorry.
second. No. I know my panelists can answer it, but let me just give you one example so that this point is clarified. There was a Katrina, kind of disaster in USA in the President Bush time. And President Bush had given the credit card with preloaded money for the Americans. And later on, they found that some of the people had used it in whorehouse, in clubs, in here or there. And all of them had to make the money good for them because you could trace that where this particular thing has been used. So programmable currency is a benefit to the country that they can trace whether it has been abused or misused or not. That's what I would say, but I'll leave it to my
Okay. So
colleagues.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now my questions are over. Time is not over, but the time is over. So viewers, you have seen about the digital rupee, which our expert panelists have given views. And this is very clear that if we have to progress, we require to change our attitudes. We have to advance ourselves. Yes, one thing is very clear in India, still the infrastructure is very weak. Technology wise also, we are adopting the technologies, but we are not being implementation is still far away in many of the rural areas. And we are seeing everywhere. But you have to move somewhere, as one of the panelists says, that we have to come forward and we have to start somewhere. So it's a very good thing if our government's intent will remain good, number one. Number two, if people will cooperate and if they want to disclose everything, then this digital or e-rupee is a good move. Only thing is that the civil society has to come forward. Today, if you are generating black money, if you want to pay the black money, definitely for you, the digital rupee will not be a boon or anything. But if you are a law-abiding citizen, if you want to see that your country should develop, then this is a good move and we should follow this. Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Karu News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Gyan, as well as was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And in our endeavor to bring to you every day new topic. Tomorrow media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. The topic is center versus state. You might be seeing today, nowadays, so much things are happening. BJP ruled, non-BJP ruled, center versus states. Every day we are seeing. So we will be analyzing what is the problem and why it is happening, what are the powers of center, what are the powers of states, federalism, etc., etc. And our panelists are Professor Dr. R.K. Arya, Professor International Economics, Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, Deemed University, Faridabad, courtesy Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, Advocate Shashank Dev Sudhi, Supreme Court, New Delhi, Mr. Nirmalendu Verma, a social activist and spokesperson, Bihar Pradesh Congress Committee, Patna, Advocate Gagan Gandhi, Managing Partner, Niti Nyay Law Offices, New Delhi. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Thank you very much, Dr. Borde. Thank you very much, Ms. Shanley. And thank you very much, Dr. Shiv Shankaran, for giving and enlightening all of us, because this is topic which everybody wants to know. So you have given all the pros and cons, challenges, etc. And we hope that this will be taken care by the government soon. And when they will launch, there should be no such types of fix which or the challenges which you have raised. Thank you very much. And thank you all the viewers for watching our show. Thank you very much.